The Raptors fall to the Philadelphia 76ers. 121-111 is your final. Welcome to Raptors Tonight. I'm Randy Urban, joined by Michael DeGiorgio, Jevohn Shepherd, and Sherman Hamilton. First, I just want to welcome Mike onto the show. His first time on Raptors Tonight. He's the head coach of Royal Crown Academy and the defending champs. Is that right, Mike?
That's right.
You know these guys?
This year.
All right. You know these guys on the panel?
I do.
All right. All right, let's get into it.
I don't know them at all.
You guys had some battles back in the day, I'm sure. Sherman and I are too old for that. Raptors brought the energy in that first quarter, guys. Then things went a bit south. Sherman, I'll start with you. What were your first impressions of the Raptors' effort overall?
Finally, we knew they had it in them, and it was great to see them actually come out and provide that punch early in the game. And, you know, it's one of those things that now you let the cat out the bag. Now you've shown that you can do that. It's going to be expected more often, but I thought their energy to start the game was excellent. Their focus to detail was very, very good. I thought their ability to neutralize Joel Embiid in that first quarter was very, very well executed. And overall, they changed the pace of the game by just running the floor, turning them over, getting out and getting those easy buckets. And to me, this is how they need to play. They need to buy into that philosophy, because then you know they're playing defense, and that can translate to offense for this team. But I really enjoyed what I saw from them in the first quarter. Other three quarters, not so much.
Jevohn, what did you see in that second quarter, especially? Because it felt like the defense was good early on, solid early on, and then, kind of went the other way.
Yeah, to start out the game, to Sherm's point, Pirtle did a great job with Embiid, right? They played with force. They played with energy. I thought in that first quarter especially, they didn't allow him to get touches below the free throw line. And when he did get the basketball and put it on the floor, Pirtle did a great job chesting him up and not allowing him to get deep, low post positioning. But the energy they played with there, you're not always going to play. Not every night you're going to play the reigning MVP. Now, going forward, that second quarter on, Tobias Harris really kept them in this game. The way he knocked down timely shots, opened the floor from the three-point line, which then forced the Raptors to play a bit more honest on the perimeter. And then you have Tyrese Maxey, who's, right now, he's just continues to ascend and play some really good basketball with his speed and with his pace and change the direction. And then that's what really allowed Joel Embiid to get the one-on-one coverages and deep low post touches in the second half. But, you tip your hat to them. You tip your hat to Nick Nurse and Joel Embiid for just really, growing and maturing over his career. I think he had 9 assists tonight, which, again, we didn't really see that early in his career, which makes him that much tougher to guard. But to Sherm's point, that energy early on, right, the way the Raptors play attention to detail and the focus on both ends of the floor, I think we've even seen this 0.5 basketball again in the first quarter, where we've got to see those for longer durations.
Yeah. So, Mike, I'm watching this game, and I'm thinking the Raptors are doing a pretty good job on Embiid, and then, and Maxey as well, and then Tobias Harris goes off, and then, it leaves some room open for Embiid to get going, and then Maxey in that fourth quarter. When you're looking at that as a coach, how do you approach a team defensively with 3 guys of that caliber?
Yeah, I think the game plan in the first quarter was to stop Embiid. That let Tobias Harris get loose a little bit, but we're still, the Raptors are still up 9 at that point. If all 3 guys are going to get 30 plus, that now you're in tough, right? You're not taking away one thing, you're sort of giving them everything. So I think, with that game plan, you got to decide what you're good with, and you got to take, the offense is going to take what they give you. So if you're good with Tobias Harris shooting jumpers, okay, let's get better contests on those jumpers. But you can't let guys get to the paint. You can't let guys make threes. You can't let guys get hot from the mid-range. Like, those are the things that'll really, hurt you. And we saw that in the second half, definitely.
Can you guys do anything can they do anything to stop guys like Maxey and Embiid? Sure.
He may have dropped out there. I think, to that question there, the fact that both Maxey and Embiid had a combined 19 assists, it's really tough to really stop those dynamic players, especially if they played a 2-man game. Embiid can play at, inside, he can play the mid-range game, he can play from the perimeter. But the fact that those guys are passing the basketball, the fact that Philly's knocking down shots, you're kind of in a tough spot, any opponent that they face, because you have to play honest now. You have to get out to the perimeter. now you have the one-on-one coverage, and as they start moving the basketball, you're dumping it back into the post with Embiid, and that matches nobody in the league that can guard him one-on-one, right? So when those guys are moving the basketball, it's a world of difference. And Maxey, his growth ever since, moving off of Harden, I think that was the best decision that they front office there could have made for his growth and, him in his young career. And he's learning, he's growing, and you're seeing him, become a stud in this league, not just playing with his speed, but playing with his teammates and understanding, what it is to play a two-man game with a MVP in Embiid and then use the other guys' auxiliary pieces on his team.
Yeah, Sherman.
I would say this, guys.
Go ahead.
I would say this, and Michael, you would know this. You go into a game thinking, what can I live with? What can I deal with if we're going to win this game? I thought the Raptors said we can live with Tobias Harris beating us. If he beats us, we'll just shake his hand. But we know that Joel Embiid can beat us. We know that Tyrese Maxey can beat us. And I thought they did a good job pretty much in the first half of neutralizing those two guys. Tobias Harris goes out for 50 and Philly wins. That's what it is. But you got to take away the known commodities and the known factors that have hurt you in the past. And they did that in the first half. Second half, it wasn't the same thing. And even though they allowed Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey to get loose in the second half, the problem was Tobias Harris was already lathered up and ready to go. So he was a part of that flow as well. And now you have, the horses have bolted the barn. There's nothing you can do about that now because they're just too good.
Yeah. So, Mike, Joel Embiid comes in averaging, 41 and 12 in December. His numbers for the regular season are pretty much better than they were when he won the MVP award. Is he your MVP right now in the NBA? Is he number one?
Yeah, I think he's got to be number one. I mean, they're top of the league with their record. He's putting up crazy numbers. He's hardly even playing fourth quarters. I think he's only played 2 fourth quarters in December right now. They're beating teams by huge margins, and they've got the best net rating in the league. Their starting five is miles ahead of other starting fives. And I think, what's changed this year compared to last year is he's in a high post hub. He's passing the ball. He's playing two-man game with Maxey, and they're going to that almost religiously every single time down the court, which is putting the defense on their heels. And, that allows the other guys to start making shots. Marcus Morris makes threes and Tobias Harris makes threes. Then you get Kelly Oubre on a cut for a big dunk in the first quarter. Like, those things all open up because Embiid is spacing the court and sharing the ball.
And Jevohn, do you agree with Mike? Do you have him at number one, or do you have, because Nikola Jokic is third in the league in rebounds, third in the league in assists, and still averaging 27 points per game. Those numbers aren't bad. Yeah,
Embiid is by far the most dominant player in the league right now. And I think, when you talk about MVPs, and we're talking about this point in the season, when you talk about MVPs, if you take Embiid off of this team, this Philly team, it's a completely different team, right? And when you talk about Jokic, he really impacts the game. But if you take him off of that squad, off of Denver, I still think that's a relatively good team, right? So just Embiid's impact on the game for Philly. And at this point in his career, I like the fact that he's playing, right? He looks like he's in better shape. He's been healthy. Even tonight, he rolled his ankle early on Jokic's layup, but he stuck through it, stuck in the game and played through it. So without a doubt, right now, I don't think it's much of a question.
Sure. Who you got? Then I'll ask another question. You got?
Yeah, Jokic. I think that he's reigning MVP, and nobody's outplaying him. He's better than he was last year. So I think if no one's outplaying him, that's why Jokic won 2 in a row. The first year he won it. The second year he was better, and no one was clearly outplaying him. Embiid was right there, but he wasn't clearly outplaying him. Nobody's clearly outplaying Embiid, so he's still the MVP right
now. So I'll go to YouTube question. Evan Panikar writes, with the inconsistencies of the great wins and the horrible losses, is there any lineup changes you'd like to see that we haven't already, or have we seen it all? Mike, do you have input on that one?
Yeah, they went to a lineup at one point in the game today. It was Gary Trent, Pascal, Scotty Barnes, OG, and Otto Porter. I kind of like that lineup a little bit because we were switchable across 4 different spots. And then you had some shooting there with Trent. Even if you put Schroeder in that lineup, the same thing. At least, there's some playmaking. You can play a different type of defense that what we normally see when they play Pirtle at the 5. And I think there, you force teams to match you with your size on the wing and your athleticism. I think that's a lineup that I would look at a little bit more in depth.
Jevohn?
Yeah, I think, and it's funny you mentioned that because there's been a lot of criticism over the last week about that starting lineup. And, a game like this tonight, and especially Pirtle, a game like this tonight, and I think that starting lineup is fine, right? These guys just have to play with confidence. You look at what's on the bench, and it's more matchups, right? And Darko just has to experiment with different matchups against different teams. If they're going smaller, you go smaller. But I thought, this lineup looked just fine with Pirtle early on, and he stepped up to the occasion. It's more about confidence for this group. It doesn't matter what rotation, what combination of players you're going with. Guys have to be on the floor and play confident and have to execute. And that's all it's going to boil down to. They're here for a reason.
Sure. What's your take on all that stuff? There's a lot of noise right now.
Yeah, there is. And then I think you credit Darko for not necessarily kind of bending down to that noise and just making a knee-jerk decision. I think before you get there, you alter the minutes in terms of maybe your starting unit doesn't stay out there as long as they have in the past. You inject some different energy into the game earlier and see if you get a different response. But I think when you're playing this kind of basketball and things aren't working the way you want it to work, I think everything's in play. So if Darko says, I think I'm going to change the starting unit, I get it. You got to make something happen, and he's trying some different things, and maybe that's the last option. But if it happens, I completely understand it.
Randy, to that point as well, to your question there, I think with all the chatter and all, the criticism and so forth, we have to tread light, and people have to tread light with what they're asking for, because if you're in Darko's position as well in the construction of the team, there's a number of forwards, there's a number of guys with similar skill sets. So if he's going to change up the lineup, are you getting something different, right? Is he able to execute a different game plan if you're exchanging a forward for another forward, so to say, right? It's so we all have to be careful with what you're asking for.
Real quick before I let you guys go, I want to do a little bit of overtime. Shaq came out and said that he is the greatest and most dominant big man of all time. He was responding to someone that said he was, I think, top 5. Where do you have Shaq, and who are your top 5 greatest big men? Mike?
Shaq's got to be up there. Nobody could stop him. And like young Shaq, when he was athletic, he could execute any defensive scheme. He's up there. I got to put Anthony Davis up there, one of the best two-way players ever. Wilt Chamberlain. Wow. This is not an order, by the way. This is not order. Wow. This is just like skill set here. I got Wilt,
Anthony Davis,
Kareem, and Hakeem. Those are my 5.
Kareem, Wilt, Hakeem, Anthony Davis, Shaq.
Without a doubt, in shape Shaq, there's nobody coming close to him. In shape Shaq is a completely different conversation. So he's got it.
Number 1?
Number 1. As long as he is in shape. That is the caveat.
And Anthony Davis on your list, Jevohn?
No, absolutely not.
Sherman, who you got? Top 5. Mike coming with some fire right now.
Well, the only problem is we didn't get to see Wilt play. And I don't know if we have a real overall understanding of how dominant he was. He may have been what Shaq was in his era back in the day. So I think when you're talking about dominance, physical dominance, Wilt was a freak of nature back then. He was a guy who we probably would have looked at like Shaq. But from what I've seen in terms of a dominant big man, physically, and then skill develops, and then the ability to impact the game and win championships. If you're not just talking defense, which it would be Bill Russell, you've got to talk about Shaq and now Abdul-Jabbar. Those are the 2 most dominant bigs that I've seen play in terms of winning championships and impacting the game. One guy had a shot that you couldn't defend. The skyhook, nobody could defend that shot. The other guy was a force of nature in Shaquille O'Neal.
Yeah. All right. That's good stuff. I don't think I have Anthony Davis on my list. And real quick, one more thing. Vince Carter nominated
Neither
for the
do
Hall
I.
of Fame.
Anthony Davis, he's got to be dressed to be on there.
I like that. Okay, Vince nominated for Hall of Fame, 8-time All-Star, 2-time All-NBA. Yes or no, Mike? First ballot Hall of Famer.
Absolutely. Not even close.
Okay. Jevohn?
Yeah, without a doubt. I think we're also going to be biased here. We grew up on him, right? So
yeah,
Vince changed the basketball landscape for an entire country.
could have been one of the greatest of all time, I think. And so I agree with you. Sherm, who you have him first ballot? No questions asked.
I do have him first ballot. Not only, I mean, he single-handedly revived the dunk contest, but you also talk about the ability to be acrobatic in the air. I mean, we haven't seen something like that since the days of Jordan and Dominique. So he definitely, and then he has over 20,000 points. He's a legit scorer in this league.
Right.
You know what I mean? And in his time, he was must-see basketball when you talk about his antics in the air.
Yeah, great stuff as usual, guys. Going to stop there. Next game for the Raptors is Saturday night at home against the Utah Jazz. Tip-off goes at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Don't forget, after the game, come on by Real Sports. Try and be a part of the show. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.